sure if I was putting on my MC host hat or if our
Ooh.
lovely Johannah was, but it's fine. We're here now and we're doing it. Welcome to the history of WTF's Occupy the Stage. We recognize that there are so many participants for this year's Occupy the Remix that may not know the origins of this event, that may not know how we got started doing this thing in the first place. So we have invited a couple of special guests to come talk with us, including, I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but just know that, like, I'm stoked because I adore all three people on your screen right now. And I'm going to let them kind of go in a circle so that you can hear their voice with their names. Who wants to go first?
I'll do it. Hi, I'm Jackie. I worked with the Women's Theater Festival in the summers of 2019 and 2020, so the year before they went virtual and the year after they went virtual. And I am so excited to be here.
Guess I'll go. I'm Rachel Kasten, and I worked with Women's Theater Festival in, I think, 2018 and 2019. No, yes, that's correct. I can count.
And you took us into 2020. You got us.
That's true.
You got us
That's
into
true.
the panty.
That's true. That's true. It's not my fault, though.
Yeah, Rachel Kasten did not cause the pandemic.
No.
I'm Johannah Maynard Edwards, and I've been with the Women's Theater Festival since October of 2016. So I missed the first Occupy, but I've been around for every Occupy since. So that's my institutional knowledge I hold.
And like always, I'm Keyanna Alexander, and I participated in Occupy the Stage 2019 because we were in person, and I was with Jackie.
Yes, I remember.
Hey, so from 2019 onward, I've been with Occupy the Stage. Whew. When you say it out loud, it feels like a long time. It's 2022, y'all.
Time is a flatbread pizza.
And I was going to try to turn speaking of pizza into a segue, but I can't. So we're just going to dive into the first question. So, like, how did Occupy come to be in the first place? Like, what was its conception?
Well, Rachel, help me fill in any institutional gap, because again, we weren't at the first one.
No.
We were hoping Pimpila would be here today, but we might get a one-on-one Pimpila musing from Occupy One. But the concept was to have a woman occupying, physically holding space on stage for 24 hours straight while demonstrating the wealth of plays by women, because at that point in 2016, everyone was fed up with hearing there just aren't enough good plays by women, or I'd cast more women if there were more roles in more plays. And so the idea was to protest that notion and to try to move the dial, because at that point it was like 30%, 20% of the plays being produced on American theater stages were written by women or starring women. So that was like the initial idea.
Yeah. And like, if we can program 24 hours straight of plays written by, directed by, starring women, you can put more than one in your season.
There is a phrase that kind of floats around Women's Theater Festival nowadays, occasionally motivated by spite. And while I don't necessarily want to put that label here, it does feel like it applies.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Perfect. So now that we've kind of set up, like, what was the initial, like, concept for our Occupy, We will start with Joe. We're gonna kind of go chronological here. So,
Yeah.
Johannah, year 2, how were you participating? What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, year 2, Occupy. So we had kind of decided that Occupy would be how we started the festival season. Back in those first couple of years, the festival season was kind of the summer. It would start with Occupy right at the end of June and go into July and early August. And so it would be kind of like main stage show after main stage show. So it was, I guess, June 30th to July 1st, because we were being like really on the nose then. And Laura Lee Stevenson did the curating of the scripts that year and kind of running what was happening on stage. But then there we were at what was the new Sonoris Road Theater then. And we Sarah Duncan, who was our board secretary at the time, ran the all-night waffle bar and bake sale. The bake sale was kind of like a big part of Occupy, where people donated food, and then people who were there all night long performing shows would make themselves a hot little waffle or having some brownies, and it was a good way for us to fundraise for the rest of the summer. I mainly that year ran box office. Like, I was running front of house operations, and so Occupy led right into the first performance of Space Girl by Maura V. Harris, directed by Katie Coop. So we literally kept that box office going all the way. Occupy ended, Space Girl opened. So we were all brutally tired by the end of that.
As you say it out loud, I'm kind of like stress.
No.
Stress. And then we have year 3,
2018.
2018.
The Year of Women Are Heroes.
Yeah. So that one was at the Wake Forest Renaissance Center, which was like a brand new space at that point. And I can't remember. I feel like, didn't we spread it out a little more? It was like a,
Nope.
it was like a, no, it did go straight through.
Yeah. Instead of learning that was brutal going straight through, we decided to add more to the 24 hours and called it Occupy Con.
Yes, because
So
we added, there was a kids track. So like my son came and he got to do some educational stuff with Seed Art Share, which was really cool, because then I got to see some cool shows and like participate in things while he was learning about badass women, which was really fun. And I directed a show in 2018.
Tell us what you directed.
Yeah, so I directed a show called In the Fall, and it was about a teacher having a sexual relationship with a student. And I basically used that show to work out my own personal trauma. And it was wonderful. It was actually it was cathartic. And the people that I was lucky enough to cast were absolutely incredible. And we spent a lot of our rehearsal time actually reading testimonies from young people who had been abused by teachers and other authority figures, and really took the story very seriously, and it really meant something to all of us to be able to put that on stage. I don't think that's necessarily something that would be programmed in most theater seasons, but it was really an honor to be able to bring that to an audience. So I was really appreciative to be able to do that. And I'd also never talked about my experiences with that personally, like in a public setting, and that gave me the confidence to do that.
Oh,
That's so powerful.
Yeah. It was. But that was a good, like, the space was cool, and maybe it was crazy to add as much stuff there as we did, but I feel like it set us up for being able to do the like big festival conference stuff the next year.
yeah, it was like our test case, and it was totally me and you who were who were full steam ahead on that like we see it. This can become a theater educational conference. Like that's what this can be. And that was the to that. And yeah, you and I were sitting there at a big long table checking people in. And we wound up using that space because I had been teaching there for a little bit through Raleigh Little Theater. I taught the offsite classes there in Wake Forest, and so I became close with the people running that facility, and they were into what we were doing. So we pitched it to them, and they gave us that space for 24 hours. And so we had the main theater space was where the Occupy the Stage readings were happening. And I think Cheryl was stage managing.
There was a glamping room, which I have to say was really cool. So like, there was a ticket tier where for spending the night, because you were there for 24 hours, there was like this very cool, like decorated room with like extra special snacks and stuff for kind of glamping during Occupy, which that was really fun.
But did people in real life bring sleeping bags and stuff?
People didn't sleep. There was no sleeping happening that I'm aware of. Were people sleeping?
I slept a little, but here's where I slept again, because I was friends with the people who run the Renaissance Center. One of them gave me her office, so I was able to make a little special private space for myself so that I could rest and get away from time to time. So I remember sleeping for like an hour or two at a time in my little pallet under her desk. But one of the things that was happening, so we had the con sessions going through the night too. And that was our first time with Seed Art Share.
Look at Key's face. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, I remember in the middle of the night doing a session on like romance novel heroines, and I with Kimmy Fiorentino did a peg doll arts and crafts workshop. We made our own little peg doll persona. I can pull mine's over there. And Rowan came. This was like, so Rowan was part of the founding of WTF and then moved to Kentucky and came back because she had this idea about doing a 24-hour long devising project, because she was working on this piece around using sleep deprivation as a therapeutic for bipolar disorder that was untreatable by other means. And so the idea was to devise through sleep deprivation. And so I performed in that. So it was like me and Catherine Harkey and Sarah Coop and maybe Cheryl. Cheryl's like everywhere. I don't know how Cheryl's in all the places, but it feels like, anyway, we performed it in the last hour of Occupy. So all that was happening. And I directed a 10-minute play and performed in a 10-minute play.
There was so much you could sign up for like a 5-minute headshot session. So those were going through the night. It was basically like, what if we did everything but did it at the same time in one day?
I do really enjoy this idea that people were getting their headshots done at like 4:00 in the morning
After not sleeping.
Yes. Like, I want to be like.
They turned out great, though.
And we had vocal coaching sessions. You could bring a song and work with a music director for 15 minutes. You could bring a piece of writing that you wanted writing feedback. Like, these were all things you could sign up for.
So I think I figured out what energy this event is giving us. It is giving us theater department last day before finals energy. Where everyone is just in the building trying to like get all their loose ends tied, and they're like, I never got my headshot. I never finished writing my 10-minute final. I have a vocal exam tomorrow. I need help. Like, it's just giving me theater department vibes, and I love that so much. I adore that.
Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm. It was all that.
So good. So good.
And really, I think that's where the piece of our ethos around being artist focused and of service to the artists was developing, because it's like, okay, well, if we're going to have like 60 actors present to do these readings, what else can we provide when they're not doing the readings? And how do we turn the artists into audience and into, like, yeah, we're working through some of those things. But yes, Key, like you said, theater department vibes. And then, some of us were getting too old for that. It was wonderful, but it probably took some time off my life.
but so the next year, so if we're now going into 2019, so we learned some things. Mm-hmm. We learned that we liked the idea of having like lots of options at the same time. We also learned that we were all too old to stay up all night. So we were like, you can do 24 hours, but it doesn't have to be consecutive. So that was something we learned. But because Johannah and I had this vision, we were like, but what if also we did it in a bunch of different locations and, spread it out over like a week, but still did all the things.
Which does bring us to, and I really desperately want to hear what Jackie's experience for 2019 was, because that was your first Occupy year, wasn't it?
It was. It was a whole lot of fun. It was one weekend, and I started working, I think, like that Thursday afternoon, whenever so it was that one weekend, and I started working when it started, and I stopped working that Sunday evening. And it was lovely. I remember I was doing box office, and because it was we were at like 3 or 4 different locations all around like the downtown Raleigh area-ish. I just remember like my shift at like Burning Coal would end, and I'd have like an hour before I had to start my shift at like Ruby Red. And I was able to like, listen and like hear in to all the plays that were going on and happening. I was involved in one of them. Imogen Says Nothing. That was super fun, being able to like go to like those rehearsals. It was just a stage reading, but being able to like go to those rehearsals and be involved in that. So it was just a really, really fun time being exposed to like so much theater and organizing the food trucks and everything.
And remind me, were you still in school at the time as well?
That was the summer I had just graduated high school. And so I was going to start my first year of college. So that was my in-between.
What a transition period from high school to college. Let me do this crazy intense weekend with the Women's Theater Festival.
Oh, so fun. I'm so glad I did it.
Some crazy lady came in to be their theater teacher for that spring semester and was like, hey, I'll come into your world. Now I'm going to take you all into mine.
And we never looked back.
And and Jackie is still WTF affiliated today. Bam.
I sure am.
You're one of our faves.
I also vaguely remember that there were like other like high school aged volunteers, and at some point it got to the like at some point I realized like, oh, I just need Jackie's number, because out of all of these kids, Jackie is the only one that I could actually rely on to show up.
Oh, I was going to say though, I feel like that was sort of the start of the idea of like having interns and really being a training ground for people who wanted to work in production and in theater and in other ways. Which that was a really cool experience. I remember being at somebody's house, your friend's house, right, Johannah? And and Jackie, you were there, and we were assembling like gift baskets for presenters and doing all of that, and had all these volunteers, and that was really cool.
Yeah, there were a few other people from that class in high school that were also contributing to Women's Theater Festival that year. So we all just kind of stayed at one of their house through the weekend. Everybody had their own little room and sleeping bag and everything. And it was great and gave me so much experience. Since I'm now a theater major in college, there's a lot of the professors are always, telling us about, oh, you need to be able to do like a lot of different things. You're not only ever going to get hired as an actor. You need to know how to do different things. And there's a lot of people that I've seen who got into acting in high school and think it's neat. And now they're learning a whole bunch of stuff about like the industry and like how it works and stuff. So like looking back on that experience and like seeing so much, theater being made by playwrights and performers and stuff that like I haven't, seen anywhere else, stuff that's I wouldn't expect to be produced on Broadway, and that I'm so glad I've seen and been exposed to. So it's just that being able to look back and be like having that experience, and it was really, really beneficial.
Yeah. So one of those other intern students who did that work is Kai Sorelle, who is doing 2 Occupy readings this year. Is in For Leonora or Companions and Acute Exposure. So playing these 2 great queer love story roles.
I love how y'all always manage to retain so many people all the time. 2019 was also my first year at Occupy. And I had been hearing about it because I did These Shining Lives. Shout out to Rachel being my producer. So I was already WTF acquainted or indirectly involved in the group already. So I had heard about Occupy, and I had heard stories from Rachel about Occupy. So when I got the call to be the production manager for it, I was like, because y'all crazy.
We know.
All night. And to Rachel's point, 2019 was the first year where there was a break in between. So we did 12 hours, or no, the first day was 18 hours, and then we had a 7-hour break, and then we came back for another 12 hours or something like that. It came out, my math is wrong. I never claimed to be a math person. But it came out to
But we knew you
hours.
could do it. We knew that you could do it.
Yeah, we did.
And
then, So 2019 was the first time we had a festival, and all at once. And like Rachel said, different tracks are happening at different locations. And the idea is that if you get this full festival pass, which Rachel, I think you ordered the passes.
Oh yeah.
And look.
I'll bet I have one by my bed. Yeah. Yeah.
And you could flash your pass at any of the locations and head right in. And yeah, and that's the first time we used Sked. for we were really, Rachel and I like picked all this out, but Rachel was kind of primarily in charge of the con venue. So our con programming was all at
HQ, right?
HQ Raleigh.
Co-working space, yeah.
Yeah.
And it made us look very fancy, by the way.
like a beautiful venue partner. And then Occupy was happening at the Wicked Witch. So Key was like the personnel that was there nonstop. And I do remember like being there to get Occupy started. And Jackie, you were like one of our first box office people. And we're trying to find change. And Rachel, you were there too because you were trying to set up the mobile play light.
Yes, I was going to say that was and because we can't stop, we were like, what if we also partnered with the local bookstore and ordered a bunch of plays written by women, and then we could sell them so the people who are here while they're milling around could also buy some new plays.
I bought a collection of Sarah Rule.
See? And I remember the bookstore being really impressed because they were like, you guys sold so much. And we were like, listen, people who like to see theater, like to read theater, it made sense.
Yeah.
It was also just a very interesting venue in general because like it's traditionally a bar. Like, and then they host events at this bar. So when I came in to set up, like this is early morning, like fresh, just got the keys from the owner. They still had posters up from the BDSM party they had the week.
Yes, I remember that. I remember that.
I remember we were like, we have to take it down. And we were like, because it's already passed. It's for like February. It's not relevant anymore.
We put in a ramp, didn't we?
The poster, it was definitely, we were like, it just looks bad because this was months ago, and
yeah,
it's not, because like we can have a poster with handcuffs on there, 3 cheers, we love that.
Yeah,
but like, God,
we
take your poster.
Tried really hard to put in a permanent ramp.
Yeah, we tried to put in a ramp.
I remember setting it up. It was because there were so many steps. It was like upstairs. It was like on the second floor to get to entry into the Wicked Witch. So I remember like setting up the ramp outside, doing my best to make this space accessible.
Accessibility is a really important value for the Women's Theater Festival, and we loved the space, but we were like, we can't use it if we can't have everyone, be able to participate.
And I definitely remember Jackie and I were out there for at least like 30, 45 minutes.
In the mud.
And at this point, the sun's going down, and we're like, okay, we have to get this done before we're sitting in darkness.
It's gonna happen. We're gonna do it. And it did.
It was a legitimate race against the clock being sunlight. But we got it done.
So you were the Occupy queens, and like I was barely involved in that Occupy because I was kind of in charge of a lot, but I was mainly in charge of the Fringe Festival because that was the first time we were doing the Fringe Festival.
Again, because we can't stop.
So I was mainly back and forth between Burning Coal and Ruby Deluxe, which was our venues for the Fringe Festival, and using our interns and apprentices like Jackie and Madison and so on to like be the people who move from space to space. Yeah. Wild.
For anyone who is keeping track at home, so for 2019, we had Occupy the Stage. We had Fringe. We had con presenters. We had an apprentice program. I feel like there was probably more happening.
There was also a kids track.
I was going to say the children.
Yeah, the family. WTF family.
Yeah. We partnered with Marbles, so Seed Art Share was over there at Marbles.
And in theory, all 5 of these things could have been independently good programming by themselves. Like they could all stand as, or all be standalone programming. But we said no, we'll just do all 5 at the same time.
And so we learned some things. That was the last time Occupy was part of the festival. Because one of the things we learned about Occupy was how important these opportunities are for playwrights, and that by doing other stuff at the same time, we were shortchanging some of the playwrights just out of bandwidth and out of, so that is when it felt right. Like Occupy needs to be its own thing. Occupy needs its own space and time to properly serve the artists. Because remember, back in 2018, we learned it's all about these artists coming to do this all night long. And in 2019, we had playwrights suddenly, like the more name recognition our company got, we had playwrights flying in from other places in the country on their own dime to see these readings. And then like in one case, like the reading got cut off because it was running too far over. And, imagine being that playwright and how much that sucks. And so as we had to shift into pandemic times and everything, we made that conscious decision, like, let's make Occupy its own thing that is, number one, focused on the playwrights, and number two, an opportunity for artists who can't devote, for whatever reason, to a full rehearsal process, to let it be that 3 rehearsal, I'm in and I'm out type thing.
Which was great. So like for someone like me who's a mom and really busy, and I had not performed in a really long time. Johannah actually approached me in 2020 and was like, listen, we've got this really cool role for specifically a Jewish woman. And, I think you should check it out. And like, if it was something where I would have had to dedicate, months of rehearsal to, or memorizing something, like that would not have happened just in my life at that point, would not have happened. But
we lost her for a second.
We'll get her back.
Yes. Yep. This is a great transition.
I'm here.
There you go.
Oh no.
Yeah, you're back.
Oh no. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, so I was saying, so I had the opportunity to be in Time Bomb, which was a really cool show about a climate scientist trying to basically sound the alarm. So like before Don't Look Up, basically this really, really badass climate scientist who was testifying in front of Congress, and it was really fun. And because it was virtual, I actually got to perform with other people that I had performed with, like in other theater parts of my life, like from the previous decade, which was really cool too.
And like some other cool things about Time Bomb, so we had built the relationship with Carson Kreitzer over doing Freak Show virtually. So then when it was time for Occupy, I was like, hey, Carson, you got to play. You want to do? And so she brought us Time Bomb. And now Carson and Time Bomb are like at the Playwright Center in Minneapolis. And this play's life is continuing. And like you, Rachel, are part of that. And WTF is like part of the life and history of this play. And like, Jackie, you did Imogen Says Nothing by Aditi Kapil, who's like just signed her Disney contract. Like she gonna be writing Disney scripts.
That was such a good script. I'm so happy for her.
And like,
and I got to be directed by Casey, who was at that time was like still in undergrad, I want to say.
Just graduated.
Just graduated, and was like seriously such a gifted director, like even virtually, was so amazing. And then, immediately she got to go on to do, assistant directing on Broadway. So like, look at us, like, look at WTF, being part of that lineage.
Yeah. Yeah. That like kind of like, I don't want to gloss over 2020 because I do think we also did a huge ambitious thing there, but leading us into this place where WTF is a part of these plays that are incredible, and just the level of submissions we get. And I know that like in year one, it was hard to get to put the lineup together, and in year two, hard. But we had to shorten our submission window this year to reduce the number of submissions that we got so that we could make it manageable. I mean,
because for 2020 we did, what was it, 40 plays in 3 days? Like,
yeah.
And can I just say the level of production virtually was astounding.
I will say thank you for that one.
The quality, seriously, the quality that was able to be pulled off, like with everyone in their own homes, and for it it looked super professional. Every show, looked and sounded amazing.
And they were all live. Like,
yes,
they may have been virtual,
yes,
but all live.
They were live, and they were being captioned, right?
Yep.
So that was actors live. That was, for anyone who isn't familiar with WTF's open caption policy, all of our work is always open caption. So that means there's no turning it on and off. It's just there. It's just sitting there for you as a part of the experience of witnessing the work. Which one like highlights, especially if it's a reading, like we're highlighting the script itself so it makes sense. But friends, there was someone in the Zoom call with the actors who has like a 5,000 slide PowerPoint that they are manually pressing for that entire show. In case you're ever like, captions are lame. These people are out here working hard for you. They are like, has to listen to every word because those captions go so fast. Like,
and hundreds of hours building captions. 6 pages of 1 hour of caption building in general. So when we had this wild idea, we're doing 40 plays and we need to caption all of them, and when we went to our friends at Caption Point, they're like, friends, we love that for you, but we don't have that kind of time to do that on like and they love us, right? Like they're like, oh yeah, we would do it on your budget if we had the time. So instead, they taught our team how to do what they do. So, and like, how selfless is that? Like, they trained these individuals so that they can do this work at the same level. And now Key and Mickey and Pim and all the volunteers who work with them are learning this incredible skill. Yeah, hours and hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, so that's what was so impressive, I think, about 2020.
Rachel, come back. You can blame it all on me.
Rachel, come back.
but while we wait for her to return, I will say I think that was also one of the biggest community building components of the Occupy as well. Was like, okay, well, we have a handful of apprentices, a handful of volunteers. We're gonna train them, and now we're all actively like, hey, do you have 20 minutes? Can you help build captions real quick? Like, so many people got onboarded to the caption team last minute because we were like, hey, even if it's only 15 minutes, come help do captions. It was such a wonderful time witnessing everyone stick a hand in to help with this huge mountain of work.
Hey guys, I'm going to duck out because my internet is not cooperating and my phone is blowing up, which I think might mean my niece is here. So, all right. I love you guys.
Do you have to do a thing to get us to 3?
I did it.
Yay!
And that, friends, is why you always have someone who knows OBS.
Yeah. Speaking of all the things that it takes to do this, that was, while it, on the other end, it might look effortless to go from 4 Zoom people to 3, you on the operator side have to change something.
There's hours of prep work that goes into making one smooth transition look like it was nothing. That's not even me tooting my own horn. That's just saying I'm incompetent because it takes me hours to build it.
No, you're amazing.
But you built it.
But it got built just like that ramp.
I still think about that ramp. And it was used. People used it.
People used it.
That's the important part.
Roll out a ramp and they will come.
And I want to bring this back one more time to 2019 because there's one more anecdote that I desperately needed to share with everyone. So at some point in the weekend, someone comes to me and says that there's no more toilet tissue in the restroom. And I'm like, perfect. I don't know where that's kept here. This is not my venue. So now
This is not my bar.
Texting the owner, like, so, where is your tissue for the restroom? And the man finally gets back to me and he's like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to go downstairs to their bar, to their open to patrons, fully functioning, I have to weave in between people bar and sneak toilet paper out to bring upstairs to the venue. So I'm just like,
in front of God and everyone.
Everything's fine. I have permission to do this.
Tim told me.
I promise Tim said this was cool.
I belong here.
Thankfully, no one stopped me, but the amount of anxiety I had of someone being like, hey, little lady, you can't take that toilet paper.
These were in the days before the toilet paper hoarding.
Yes.
So the thought of somebody like looking at Keyanna being like, she's taking that toilet paper, I'd be much more, who's gonna stop you?
So the 2 bars were connected by a back staircase as well as the front of the buildings. And so our people were also going down the back, up and down the back staircase to get drinks and stuff.
Which they
real
were
speakeasy vibes.
To do. Like, they weren't like sneaking alcohol. They were like,
no. That was why he donated the venue to us, so that hopefully our audiences and artists would spend money at their bar, you know.
There were quite a few playwrights I noticed who did multiple trips throughout the night.
Famously, playwrights like to,
It's theater.
What's theater without a few cocktails in your hand, you know?
I mean, and that's part of the thrill of having it at a bar, right? Like, let everyone loosen up a little, you know?
And I do enjoy how we tried to tie that back in for 2020 with the different WTF cocktails. So
Yeah.
even if we're not actually at a bar, if you have the ingredients at home, you can still have that experience. I really liked that.
Yeah. And so, like, I know that for 2020, for you and Pim and Mickey and sorry, I just got a text. For all of you working show to show, gosh, I know that was like still exhausting. But like my experience at 2020 Occupy was I got to perform some and mostly just be the captain audience member cheering everything on. And it was so much fun. Like I spent that whole weekend holed up at my mom's house alone. Like, got to tell my husband, like, yeah, I have to work all weekend. So I'm going to go, be over here by myself so that like, I can focus on work. And it was such a pleasure to just like carry the laptop with me everywhere, watching shows from the time I woke up to the time I fell asleep. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun. I'm not gonna lie, it was fun. There were, I think everyone experiences at least a handful of moments where they're like, but overall, we enjoyed the time. And like, also, it's one of those like, as theater makers, we so often equate pushing ourselves, challenging ourselves to expanding our craft. And I think that was what was happening. Like we weren't pushed so far that we broke. Some of us were closer than others. But we never once like had this sensation of like it's not worth it. It was always worth it, and that's the important part.
Definitely, very that.
Yeah.
But
like kind of leading us from there to here is this continual path of learning and learning that we don't have to push ourselves that hard, and to that like we can be appropriately ambitious while being appropriately supportive of not just the playwrights and artists we're welcoming in, but of ourselves. And so the adjustments that we've made this time from that learning involve us pre-recording the readings and pre-loading them so that everyone on this team can have the experience I had of enjoying the presentation because our work is done. And like something that we've learned over these 2 years is that moving to what we call virtual theater is moving to live broadcast television. So every time we put on one of these live broadcasts, it's like us producing the Oscars show for the first time. We weren't trained to do that. We're like just kind of flying on the seat of our pants doing that. And there's a real pressure to that behind the scenes to like making everything happen the way it's supposed to. And we're just alleviating some of those pressures on ourselves so that we can have as good of an experience as we're trying to create for others this time. Is it working, Key?
Yes. Oh, yes. And then also, right, like just and you said this earlier too, we just can't do 40 plays again. So, and to decrease the amount of stress for our team, right, like decreasing the number of works accepted, like, because self-care has to extend to yourself and has to extend to your teammates. So thanks, Johannah, for making that call.
Yeah, it's hard, because we want to like, there's so many good plays submitted and we all fall in love with these plays because we're reading them all and we're loving them. But it did seem right for Occupy 22 to limit it to 22. And with our theme, the remix, taking shows from previous years and bringing them back. So there is a piece from Occupy 2018. There's a piece from Occupy 2019. There's a piece that we didn't program in the 40 plays in 2020 that we just couldn't get out of our heads that we really, really wanted to do. So we're bringing that one back as a remix. And we have one of our plays from last year that was, it was the very last play at Occupy 2020. And so it was really late at night. And I think there was only like 4 or 5 of us. The director even slept through her alarm. She didn't make it to the showing, but it was such an exceptional play that we're like, oh my God, more, and just so beautifully done by those 2 performers. Like what we captured was magic. So we're re-airing that one as our 22nd play in Occupy 22. That story again by Emma Joy Hill. Yeah.
I'm so excited. One, I'm excited for Occupy 22 because I actually get to watch it this year and not work it, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm most excited for. Jackie, what are your hopes and dreams for Occupy 22?
I'm so excited. I get to see plays. I get to see the theater. Yeah, I mean, the same thing that, I loved so much about that first summer I worked with the Women's Theater Festival, of just being exposed to so much, to these, and it's all, I'm very much in the vein of the theater person, the film lover, like the artist in me loves pieces of art that like have something to say and know how to say it. And that's always what I've been exposed to in the plays that have been, produced by the Women's Theater Festival. So I'm just excited to, and I think it's been a hot minute since I've seen some virtual theater. I'm in a college theater department, which is lucky enough to be putting on live theater. And some national tours are coming through. So I think it's been I'm excited to like kind of get back to that and see how, that is growing and has grown since the beginning of the pandemic, how people are exploring and learning how to utilize it as its own individual art form. So yeah, I'm very excited, very pumped for the shows.
All right, Johannah, hopes and dreams for 22.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope lots of people attend for lots of reasons. But one is, our economic reality is we need to sell tickets so that we can compensate the people involved. But also because these plays are really good. The level of this year, what we in our submission call, we called for showcase ready scripts. And Occupy truly is a showcase of these works that are ready to go. They are ready for their world premieres. And so the level of talent of everyone working. So my hope and dream is that lots and lots of people tune in and bear witness to these incredible plays and help be a part of their life.
Wow, in our hour together, and we're almost at an hour perfect, you guys. We have marked out every single year of Occupy and had some great stories to share with everybody about our personal experiences with the event. And thanks so much for all of you joining us for 22. We hope that, you have just as much time. That's not what I wanted to say. Have such a good time as much as we have in the past, and thanks for coming on this journey with us. Okay, all right, this is me, Keyanna, with Jackie and Johannah telling you bye-bye.